What is going on, guys? Welcome back to the channel, and today I wanted to make a little bit of a crossover video about both Fallen Order and Battlefront 2 by talking about some of the content that I would love to see from Fallen Order and added into Battlefront 2. Obviously, this stuff probably isn't very likely to be added anytime soon, if ever. I do recall some of the developers actually mentioning that they probably won't add Fallen Order content as they feel as though it is Respawn's creation and not theirs, which is fair enough. And on top of that, I have 3 heroes and 3 villains, 4 reinforcements and 2 maps, as well as a bunch of skins and stuff too. So even if they were to add some, it definitely would not be this much. But I thought it would be fun to make a video on it anyway. Now, there's not going to be any direct story spoilers in this video, but there will be some characters who you might not know if you haven't played yet. So if you haven't played the game and you are still trying to avoid all the spoilers, then I would definitely recommend clicking off the video and coming back after you have finished. So, getting straight into it, we are going to start off with the light side heroes, and obviously first and foremost I do have to mention Cal Kestis. For those who don't know, Cal is the main protagonist in Fallen Order, who was a former Padawan before the Purge, and then obviously during the game he does return to being a Jedi after being in hiding for over 5 years. Cal already has 3 abilities in the game, the pull, push and slow abilities, so DICE could try and play around with these if they wanted to, or they could even try and add some sort of psychometry ability where Cal can see where the enemies have been recently, showing footsteps on the ground or something like that. I am actually going to be doing full hero concepts for most of these characters and even some of the reinforcements as well in the coming weeks, just so that I can go into proper detail on all of them. So let me know in the comments if hero concepts for the Fallen Order characters are something that you guys would be interested in. Now, next up for the light side, we have Jaro Tapal, Cal's former master, who we see mainly through the flashbacks in-game. And I thought he was a really cool character, almost like a sort of brute type character since he's so big and powerful. And he also has a double-bladed saber as well, which would be cool to see on the light side. I'm not really 100% sure what his abilities could be because we haven't really seen too much of him, but one thing he does do in the game is often lifts characters up and slams them into the roof. So some sort of like choke ability or just a force lift and then slam, something along the lines of that would be pretty cool to see. Now, next up we have Night Sister Meron, which may seem a little bit weird since obviously the Night Sisters aren't generally friendly, but if you have played the game then you'll know exactly why she's on the light side. Now, Meron could be a really unique and interesting character for DICE to add. She'd probably have to use her magic as pretty much every form of attack since she doesn't really use any weapons. And so she could almost be like a Palpatine type of character where she doesn't technically have a weapon, and I'm definitely keen to jump into her hero concept and try and come up with some really different attacks and abilities to use. Now, moving on to the dark side characters, and of course I do first up have to mention the second sister, who I would personally love to see in Battlefront 2. Now, I'm not too sure whether she'd have a single or a double-bladed lightsaber, or maybe even like it is in Fallen Order, you could switch between the two whenever you wanted, which would be a very nice addition. But either way, I guess the damage would be the same regardless, so that's mainly an aesthetic change anyway. As for her abilities, there are a few things that she does in the final boss fight which would be pretty cool to see. One is almost the same as Luke's repulse ability, where she pretty much just force slams the ground, sending out a sort of shockwave effect. And then there are a few where she also really quickly dodges forward and attacks too. One is more of a stab where the other one's a bit more of a spinning motion, so either of those would be also pretty cool to see. Moving on, we have yet another Inquisitor, which is the ninth sister, and she'd be a really good counter to Jaro Tapal actually, seeing as she's also sort of a brute type of character with a double-bladed saber as well. One of her abilities could be a saber throw similar to Maul, since she does obviously do that in the boss fight, whereas this could be more of a sort of boomerang type rather than just straight forward and back. And then she also does this sort of jumping lunge type of thing while swinging her saber, which would also be pretty cool to see, almost the same as Maul's spin attack but just slightly different. But in saying that, we wouldn't want her to be too similar to Maul either, so I'll have to think about that for the hero concept. She is actually also voiced by the same person who voices Leia in Battlefront 2 as well, so that has absolutely nothing to do with anything, but I thought that was a cool little fact because their voices don't really sound the same at all. And it would be cool to have another voice actor who actually voices 2 characters in the same game. Now, moving on, we have the final dark side character, who is Taron Malicos, and this guy would be so cool to play as, I reckon, since he was so powerful in the dark side, and he also uses 2 sabers as well, similar to Grievous, which does add a nice bit of variety. As for his abilities, I'm honestly not too sure, but one thing I remember him doing was kind of throwing his saber up in the air and controlling it with the force, then actually attacking and having it come down after, so maybe something like that could be cool, but I'm also not sure how effective that would be. He does also have a move where he throws each saber one at a time, so maybe having some sort of like double saber throw or something would be cool, but again, I'll have to dive into those abilities a lot more when I get around to the hero concepts. So that is actually it for all of the heroes and the villains. Obviously there are 3 per side, which is just never going to happen, so keep in mind that this is all just throwing ideas out there, but I definitely don't expect any of these, let alone 6 new heroes. But if I had it my way, I would definitely love to see all 6 added in the future. Now moving on to some reinforcements, and I have pretty much just got all of the Purge Trooper variants here, and unfortunately they are all obviously on the dark side, as there really just aren't too many light side reinforcements in Fallen Order. But if you guys do think of any, then definitely leave a comment down below. First off, we'll start with the Purge Trooper Commander, which are the really annoying ones with the blasters that sort of act like a rolly boy from the Battlefront 2 player base, and these guys would probably be the least unique variants, as they do just have a blaster, and therefore they'd be probably a little bit similar to some of the other reinforcements that are already in the game. They'd most likely just be an enforcer and kind of play similar to a Death Trooper, I guess, just with a different blaster and obviously some different abilities as well. One of their abilities in game is that they do shoot those unblockable shots that deal heaps of damage, so that could be one of their abilities in Battlefront, some sort of overcharge ability where it fires a projectile kind of like Iden's ion shot or something along the lines of that. Next up we have the Electro Staff Purge Troopers, who are kind of the main ones that were advertised in the lead up to the game's launch, and these would also be the first melee only reinforcements as well, which would be pretty awesome to see, as the community has been requesting melee reinforcements for a very long time now. These guys do have a move where they walk forward spinning their staff, and it kind of reminds me a lot of Grievous's Unrelenting Advance ability, so it would be cool to see something like that, but maybe just a little bit smoother and easier to control. But again, I'm not really sure if that would be all that effective unless they got a heap of damage reduction at the same time or something, so I will have to have a proper think about that for the full concept. Moving on, there are also the Electro Baton Purge Troopers, or Electro Baton Purge Troopers, depending on how it's pronounced where you live, as I know Baton has a few different ways of pronouncing it. But anyway, these are the guys with the dual wielded weapons rather than just the single one, and they're much more agile and aggressive than most of the other Purge Troopers. I think these guys would probably have slightly lower health than the others, but probably a more aggressive playstyle just to counter that, leaving them to be a little bit more unique than the rest. Having a dual wielding melee reinforcement would be so much fun, and as for their abilities, I'm not too sure, but they could come up with some really fun abilities for these guys. Now lastly, out of all the Purge Troopers, these are my personal favourites, which are the Electro Hammer Purge Troopers, and these ones are the ones that could probably have some of the more unique abilities overall. In Fallen Order, they have an ability where they kind of slam the ground and drag the hammer towards you, sending a chain of electricity your way, almost the same way that Palpatine does. So that would be cool to see as one of their abilities, whether it be a stun ability or maybe it just deals a heap of damage to anyone in its area of effect, because I think we have more than enough stun abilities already. So obviously those are the 4 Purge Troopers in the game. Like I said, it does kind of suck that there are only dark side reinforcements that could be added, because other than the Wookiees, there's really no one from Fallen Order that could be added as a light side reinforcement, at least not that I could think of anyway. Now, next up, I did want to mention 3 planets or maps that I would love to see added to Battlefront 2, and obviously there's kind of no way that they could put an exact replica of the Fallen Order version in the game, since they're all fairly linear and are designed just for a single player experience. But I would just love to see the planet itself added, and DICE could just kind of make their own versions of these maps to suit each game mode. First off, I would love to see Bogano added to Galactic Assault. Maybe they could try and keep it somewhat similar to how it is in Fallen Order and make it so that the Empire has to sort of advance from point A all the way to the Temple or something. But again, they'd obviously need to change up the map design a fair bit, because how it is now would be essentially unplayable in a multiplayer setting. Next up, I would also love to see Zepho added to the game, but this one would be a little harder, as they would kind of have to design their own location on the planet, or at least expand on what we have in the game. The first area you go to after leaving the ship is called the Abandoned Village, and I would love to see a map like this, but obviously much larger, something pretty much similar to Tatooine, but with the look of Zepho being that sort of mix of grass and snow with these stone buildings and stuff like that. Zepho is easily one of my favourite planets from the game, so I would definitely love to see more from this planet in the future. Now, lastly for the maps, and this one is probably an obvious one, but I would love to see Dathomir added, as let's be honest, everyone loves Dathomir, and I think it'd be such a nice change up from all the maps currently in the game. Obviously, they wouldn't really be able to use the Fallen Order version of this one, it's just far too linear and the layout just wouldn't work, but something like what we saw in the Clone Wars, where it was much more flat and sort of just like a forest with all those weird dead tree looking things, would be awesome to see. Not only to suit the Night Sister being added too, but it would be amazing to see both Maul and Grievous on Dathomir too, since they are there in their own episodes of the Clone Wars as well. Now, lastly, I do also have a few skins that could be added with these characters as well, so I will quickly just touch on all of those before we end the video. For Cal, he'd obviously just have his regular appearance without the poncho, but then he could also have his Braka poncho skin, and hell, maybe even variants of that with different colours and stuff as well. I would also love to see Cal in his Padawan robes, but obviously just at his current age, pretty much just seeing him dressed the same way that all the Jedi used to dress, but that might look a little bit strange since he's not a Padawan anymore, so I'm not too sure if that one would really work. Moving on to the second sister, obviously her base skin would probably just be the one with the helmet on, and then the helmetless variant could be her second skin. Definitely not a big change, but it's not really much different than Kylo or Iden, and so I'd definitely love to see a helmetless Triller skin. Lastly, for the heroes, Meron could have her hooded appearance that she has in the first few scenes in the game, and then again a hoodless variant as well, which surprisingly does actually make her look a fair bit different. Now, lastly, moving on to the trooper skins, obviously we could get Jaro to Paul's Legion for the clones. I think they're called the 13th Battalion or something like that, but either way, this would definitely be a nice skin for the clones. And then for the Empire, we could also get the Officer Scout Troopers with those orange pauldrons, because let's be honest here, the Empire is in desperate need of some trooper skins. But anyway, that is going to pretty much do it for all of the content that I would love to see from Fallen Order, guys. Let me know down below if you guys would want any of this, or if there was anything you think I missed as well. Like I said, I will be getting stuck into the hero concepts in the coming weeks, starting with both Cal and the second sister, so if you are excited for those, then make sure to leave a comment down below letting me know. If you enjoyed the video, guys, make sure to smash that like button, and don't forget to subscribe so you don't miss any more Battlefront or Fallen Order videos. Thank you all so much for watching. You guys have a great day, and I will catch you all in the next one.